So I got a bunch of Cobra Retro Troopers and I've started army building and kitbashing and customizing. Hear me out. This is going to be so cool. This is Hervé from Comic Book Bin, filling you in since 2002. Like and subscribe. So these guys are the new Retro Troopers. A lot of people don't seem to like them, but the Hasbro team decided they were going to make them as close to the cartoon as possible. Not really the comic since the blue is off and they don't have red mask. But red mask, you say? There's a lot of ways of finding red masks for those guys, and I did just that. I've customized at least 24 of those guys, including officers, to make sure that I had an army worth displaying. Of those 24, I've got Retro Cobra Troopers, Original Cobra Island Troopers, Cobra Infantry, Officers, Python Patrol Troopers, Python Patrol Officers, Stinger Drivers, his tank troopers and officers. You name it, I've got it. Let's look at these figures further. These are the multiple variation that I've got on Cobra Troopers and officers. I've got 24 different variation of figures here. Each has been kitbashed with a different head. I only changed the head and of course the weapons. And in this group, I've got 24 different skin tones. And that's it. This is the most diverse Cobra army ever. In this batch, just here, I'm going to go in detail in each of them. On this side, I've got the regular Cobra Troopers and officers who are not kitbash. Those are the original. They probably sport different gear, but the heads are all the same. I haven't changed any of them. And as you can see, they're all the same. Yes, there are more. These are all the original heads on each character and different variation thereof of characters. I love army building, obviously, as you can see. It's amazing what you can do when you've got so many different heads. The only thing I changed on each of those characters were the heads. Well, I changed the weapons, but I had so many other weapons. For example, I didn't like the original weapons that came with the infantry soldiers. I don't like the big peg here. I despise this peg. It takes away from the realism of the figure. I could have just stored them away in a box, but I've decided I was just going to use these as extra weapons that decorate the back of many of the figures. Because they don't have peg holes for fire effects, they're better as decorations. Well, on this particular Cobra character, he's got the new retro head. And the new retro head comes with a red hair guy. This is the new thing about those new retro guy. They all have red hair. So he's a red hair guy on an original infantry trooper. There's only one like that in the entire army. The other guys, this is an original retro character here. He's got the red hair also. So I didn't change his head. The most important thing to remember is that the pegs are compatible with all of the officers and the troopers, so you can exchange them. In essence, there's two models of heads. There's the cloth mask, and then there's like the more modernized mask. There are different colors and the hoods are also of different shades. And if you play with those, you can have several variations. It's always the same two sculpt that's reused, and that's basically all I've done. Some of them have the red mask, just like in the comics, and sometimes a cartoon. Sometimes they have the black one, so on. If you're an army builder, you have to start diversifying your troops. They can't all be the same guy, like these guys here. They're basically all the same guy. But these guys, they're all different. And I've got 24 of them, 24 different variation. I could have made more variation if I had even more of each of the troops. Like I don't have many officers. I only have 6 regular officers, 3 Python Patrol officers, which for me are the guys with the green shirt. And I only have 2 his tank unit officers. Those are those guys with the red and black just here. I've got a Cobra Stinger driver. Well, I've got 2 of them. There's another Stinger driver. This Stinger driver, obviously, is a white guy versus this guy over here, who's a black guy. And as you can see, it all fits. You can literally make your army look special and unique and have different characters all over the place. They don't have to all look the same if you're army building. Each of these guys is a different guy because he's got a different head. I've got a lot of red mask, black masks, modern mask, cloth mask, you name it, I've got it. Now, because the retro figures came with extra weapon, they came with 2 weapons. I spread the love of all those weapons across all of the troops, so none of them are wearing the old ugly weapons. For a while, I've been meaning to maybe buy a kit of new weapons. I've decided not to. I'm glad I waited because now I've got enough weapons to standardize all of my Cobra troops with the same type of weapons, but then they all have peg holes, which means that they can all shoot fire. And that's good. That's the way I like it. As you can tell, I'm having a lot of freaking fun with this. I've got a bit of a murder here. A couple of troops got hit and then they all fell. Cobra troops are not very resistant. They die easily. Now, obviously, I've shown you the Cobra troops and officer army building. I didn't show you my Valkyries. I've got 10 Valkyries, and I've got a lot of Vipers, and I've got a lot of Android Bat Troopers. These are only the regular blue shirt army builders, officers, and Cobras, regular ones. Well, since this was supposed to be a review of a regular troop, let's grab one of them and review it. There's not much to say. They come with 2 weapons. The regular cartoon weapon and the long range weapon. Like this one. You'll notice that I did put some of my extra night goggles on this guy. They're green. They don't look very good on the green guy, but I didn't want to put them on the other troopers. I wanted to show their faces. Well, some of my troopers do have them, but I had 2 extra ones. So they have this weapon here with the scope, or the regular machine gun. They come with the same harness that came with Stalker. This harness doesn't stay easily. Since I've got a lot of them, it means a lot of figuring out it, fixing different troops. I would have preferred if they all had this kind of harness here instead for the Cobra Troops, as opposed to the G.I. Joe harness. Well, Stalkers. Can of course remove the helmet. It's the same helmet as the regular troops, which seems much like an officer's helmet, except it doesn't have the officer sign on top of it, the chevron. They each come with a one chevron here. I don't know if it means that they're sergeants. I don't think they are. I think they're just like corporals or something like that. In terms of head cannon, since I'm going to get more of those guys, I'll have more of those guys than everybody else. Those will be the basic troopers. These other troopers here, the old infantry guys, are a bit more armed, better protected. So I think these guys can be one level up, a bit better trained than the regular troops. So better protected. Or maybe they're the advanced teams. They're the ones who actually go up front first in battle. Whereas these guys are less protected, so they stay behind. They can be support staff also, so they each have weapons, but they're not exactly the pure combatants. I never noticed that the Cobra troops had this kind of torso here without a regular articulation here. It seems to me that they were probably some of the first G.I. Joe classified figures to have this kind of articulation at the torso, except because of the vest here, we could never figure it out. We could never see it. Now many G.I. Joe figures do have the new articulation. They can still bend a lot. There are butterflies in the shoulders, but they're not the best. On this side they are, but on this side they feel a bit stuck. The rank here always falls. I will say the articulation are smooth. It's the same old buck, so they do have the peg showing here. The head articulation is good, but sometimes the neck are stiff. Well, in this case, because no, it's an original head, so it's stiff, just stiff like that. Could be better. It's not. They can all do the Van Damme. But I've noticed as time goes by, the articulation at the hips are not getting better. Some of the troops, like these guys, were the worst. These 2 guys, they were the worst. The knife is problematic on each of those figures. It's very difficult to insert the knife inside of the holder here. The sheath is too thin and the knife is very thick. so it doesn't go up as easily. The weapon holster on the right thigh is very loose. This one is stiff, and that's good. This one will stay on, the other one will not. To put the silencer in the holster is very difficult. I had to warm each of these figures in order for them to have softer plastic at the holster so I could insert the silencer. The handgun did go in smoothly enough. The knees are smooth, the articulation are not stiff, but many of them have crooked knees. This is something that the old figure also had. So some of those guys also had crooked knees, right? This one, they're a bit crooked even on him. So the problem is with the sculpt itself. It's an old sculpt. They have crooked knees, including the old figures. They decided to put more polish on these things, probably some paint here also. The old guys didn't really have paint. It was their same basic plastic that was used. I think I like this style better, but that's okay. They just wanted to make it more retro. So that's what they did. I think this design is incredible. I really like it. These are some of the best troop builders that G.I. Joe has ever created. I wish that they would make them available all the time. I was lucky being an original G.I. Joe classified collector from the beginning. So I was able to get a lot of those troopers at the time. Only had 2 Cobra Island troopers, but these guys, I have a lot of them. But eventually, I'll have even more of the new retro guys since they're so much easier to find than these guys right now. These guys are quite expensive. These troopers are extremely expensive right now because they're army builders. Everybody wants army builders. I'm not sure why the Hasbro team never made sure that they had troopers all the time available. It's like leaving money on the table. The back of the figure is good. Now, the weapon may look a bit puny on some of them, but that's okay. They're not supposed to have so many weapons. Anyway, you can't even store those weapons on the troopers, which is why I had to share all of those weapons with all the other Cobras. So this is an original Cobra Trooper. This is another original one, except he's got the green visor that came with the Python Troopers. The green doesn't look so good, but that's okay. Where else was I going to use it? I'm really happy that I can army build and I can have very unique designs for all of these figures. Remember, this is the original design, but all of the designs here are original, all of them. Not a single one of those guys is the same. And there's a lot of them. This is the fun you can have with your Joe team. If you army build like me, you can have unique designs, or you can have the standard release here, or like those guys. Of course, I've got more standard release, but just the fact that I've got so many custom made and kit bashes is good. Now, I haven't even tried putting some maskless figures like some of the people have been doing. Like I could have put an extra flint head, anything. Could have created a scar face from another figure, a head lying down. Who knows? Actually, maybe Falcon's head might be great for Scarface with an officer. This is Hervé from Comic Book Bin, filling you in since 2002. Like and subscribe.